A company's relationship with the human brain begins long before employment, at the very first interview. In that moment, decisions are shaped by what we can observe: appearance, body language, and carefully constructed responses. These signals help determine whether a candidate appears to be the right fit for an organization. But there is a fundamental limitation. Candidates can rehearse. They can refine their answers. And increasingly, with the assistance of artificial intelligence, they can present highly convincing, but not necessarily authentic versions of themselves. In short, the interview process can be deceived. What cannot be deceived, however, is the brain itself. Imagine if we could move beyond outward responses and gain insight into what a person is genuinely thinking, not what they say, but how they cognitively respond. Today, that is becoming possible. Through advances in neuroscience, we are now able to bridge the gap between observable behavior and underlying thought activity. The human brain is composed of billions of neurons, continuously generating subtle electrical signals. Using EEG technology, these signals can be measured through non-invasive sensors positioned across the scalp, aligned to known functional regions of the brain. These measurements provide objective insight into cognitive function, revealing patterns linked to decision-making, problem-solving, emotional intelligence, attention fatigue, and adaptive thinking. In practical terms, this allows us to build a cognitive profile of an individual, and importantly, the same principles can be applied to roles. By analyzing job requirements, we can define the cognitive profile that a role demands, and then compare this with the measured profile of a candidate or employee. At Competitive Edge Technology, we have developed baseline cognitive profiles for more than 1,500 roles across the Australian workforce. Each profile is grounded in real-world data from current job descriptions. The purpose of the baseline cognitive profile validation study is to test a critical hypothesis: that the measured brain activity of individuals performing a role will consistently fall within the defined cognitive profile for that role. If validated, this establishes a powerful insight that future candidates suited to these roles will exhibit similar cognitive patterns. This is the foundation of a new approach to workforce alignment, and that is what the baseline cognitive profile validation study is all about. I will pass over now to my colleague to explain how the validation study is made possible by using the consulting advice from Competitive Edge Technology and their custom-built software they share with clients.
Thank you, Professor. Today, I want to explain why we are conducting the Baseline Cognitive Profile, or BCP, validation study, what the underlying hypothesis is, and how we are going about validating it in a practical, scalable way. Let me start with the science. As the professor explained, modern neuroscience has firmly established that the brain operates through the activity of billions of neurons. These neurons communicate through electrochemical signals, producing very small electrical impulses. When groups of neurons activate together, particularly within specific regions of the brain, they generate patterns of electrical activity that can be measured. These signals are not random. They form oscillations, what we commonly refer to as brain waves, across different frequencies and amplitudes. Importantly, these oscillations change in response to external stimulation, cognitive effort, emotional states, and task engagement. This is where EEG, or electroencephalography, becomes relevant. EEG devices measure these low-level electrical signals through sensors placed on the scalp. Historically, EEG required clinical environments, conductive gels, and highly controlled conditions. However, recent advances have changed that significantly. Modern EEG headsets, particularly consumer-grade and semi-professional devices, now operate without gel. They use dry or saline-based sensors, improve signal processing, and built-in noise reduction. They are far more tolerant of slight movement and can reliably capture usable data outside of laboratory conditions. This evolution is critical because it allows EEG to move from a purely clinical tool into a practical instrument for real-world applications, including workforce analytics. In the BCP model, we focus on simplifying this complex neurological activity into something that can be consistently measured, compared, and applied. Specifically, we capture EEG-derived signals and translate them into normalized values aligned to 5 key brain regions. These regions are selected to represent core cognitive functions, such as attention, executive processing, emotional response, and sensory integration. Rather than dealing with raw waveforms, we convert oscillation patterns and amplitude variations into a single representative value per region. This gives us 5 comparable cognitive indicators per individual. This simplification is deliberate. It allows us to move from abstract neuroscience into something that can be understood and applied in business contexts, particularly in workforce performance, role alignment, and cognitive load analysis. Now, let me explain the hypothesis behind the study. The central hypothesis is this: if we can reliably capture a 5-region cognitive profile for an individual, and if different job roles require different cognitive patterns, then it should be possible to model, compare, and optimize the alignment between people and roles. Taking that further, if AI can infer a probable EEG-based cognitive profile for one job, based on its tasks, responsibilities, and behavioral requirements, then it should be capable of doing the same across a much larger set of roles. In this study, we have extended that assumption to approximately 1,500 job classifications. Using AI inference techniques, we have sourced and analyzed job descriptions across multiple regions, including Canada, Europe, and the United States. In effect, I am reverse engineering roles, translating job requirements into expected cognitive patterns. From this, the AI generates a ranked or weighted set of probable EEG values across the same 5 brain regions used in the BCP model. This creates a comparable structure. On one side, we have measured cognitive profiles from individuals. On the other, we have inferred cognitive profiles for roles. The objective is to test how closely these align and whether meaningful patterns emerge that can support decision-making. To operationalize this, we have developed a supporting technology toolkit.
At the core is a custom-built application on the Salesforce platform. This application ingests EEG data, typically via CSV streams captured wirelessly from EEG headsets, and structures it into a unified data model. It creates linked datasets for both individual profiles and job classifications. Within this environment, we can analyze cognitive values, identify gaps between individuals and roles, and begin to explore patterns at scale. Importantly, this is not just a research exercise. The intention is to provide clients with controlled access to this data and these insights through the Salesforce platform, allowing them to explore workforce alignment, capability development, and potentially new forms of performance optimization. As part of this approach, I also plan to work closely with leading suppliers of 5-channel EEG headsets, focusing on devices that are practical, scalable, and suitable for real-world deployment. The emphasis throughout is on usability, consistency, and data quality, rather than clinical complexity. Let me give you an example. The new workforce platform needs to be secure, flexible, customizable, and easy to use for the business community. In other words, citizen developers. For that reason, Competitive Edge Technology, that is CET, chose the Salesforce many years ago. A pre-built customizable Salesforce application can be downloaded by clients to build their own branded version. It is an unmanaged package and clients are free to add objects, fields, and write reports as they wish. CET helps clients populate the application and import data from their current HR systems if they wish. Clients have the options of downloading a comprehensive set of objects to assemble and operate as a working HR system, if they wish. If clients are not Salesforce customers at present, it does not matter. CET will help clients get started on their version. The diagram shown illustrates an object manager repository of standard and custom objects on the Salesforce platform. There is one object for a person and one for jobs. Within the objects, clients can add whatever fields they wish to address company-specific needs. Examples show fields included in the jobs object followed by fields in the person object. The screen examples below show an employee, Bill Smith, in his current job as branch manager with personal cognitive profile, and it is compared to the BCP for the branch manager job. You can see the cognitive gap on the screen indicates he is in a positive situation, indicating he exceeds the cognitive demands of the position. This screen below shows what happens if he was moved to the position he aspires to of chief executive. That shows a different equation. There is a cognitive gap between his current cognitive assessment and what would be a good fit for the chief executive position. In Bill Smith's case, it could be a matter of closing the cognitive gap using methods or tools from the inevitable ecosystem that will focus on gap closure as the concept gains acceptance. The final screenshot shows a report accessing the Salesforce database to give a snapshot into company cognitive health. That information opens up opportunities to manage cognitive fit to improve company productivity and profit. The final screenshot illustrates how easily the Salesforce application is deployed to clients. CET packages and password protects and unmanaged BCP applications. Clients wishing to download and install the application are provided with the URL and password. In summary, the BCP validation study is about confirming the missing intelligence layer and bridging three domains: neuroscience, artificial intelligence, and workforce analytics. It is grounded in established science, enabled by modern EEG technology, and scaled through AI inference. The goal is to determine whether cognitive patterns can be measured, modeled, and ultimately applied in a way that delivers practical value to organizations. And most importantly, to test whether this can be done in a way that is ethical, scalable, and genuinely useful in the real world. Please contact us for more information if you are interested in taking part in the BCP validation study, or just wishing to transition your company's HR practice to a new science-backed, vastly more efficient and dramatically cheaper to operate. Thank you.